Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Right Guys podcast where we talk about Tim Walz, mega liberal. And now your hosts, Josh Hammerling and Max McGuire.
Welcome back to another edition of the Right Guys podcast. Happy Wednesday. We have Tim Walz, vice presidential pick for Kamala Harris, making this officially the most liberal Democratic ticket ever put forward. And if you're wondering how could that possibly happen, well, it happens by installing a candidate who never received a single vote in the primary. If she runs, she doesn't win. She tried running in 2020, didn't get a single vote because she dropped out before Iowa. Right? So you have, in a sense, the Democrat Party. And listen, if they get away with this, if they win, you will never again have a democratically elected candidate for the Democrat Party at the top of the ticket. Why would you? Because if the party bosses think that that the Democrat primary voters get it wrong, they just take them out.
Pick somebody.
Take them out. Pick someone else. Right.
Pick them. Right. You know, the person who was running, they just tuck their tail and run. And then you put somebody else in there. And I haven't been able to find any evidence on any group that's suing over this. No, which is kind of crazy. I mean, you want to talk about being in lockstep with the apparatus. That's huge by itself.
It's a party. The party has rules. So Republican Party has rules for this too. If their candidate was to die, become incapacitated, quit, they have similar rules. Democrats have what are called superdelegates. So if the elected delegates don't make a decision, then the superdelegates also get to go in and pick who it is. No, it is very weird. It is very weird to see the party that claims to be defending democracy coronating a candidate who wasn't the people's choice, who prior to this media whitewashing of her record and social media influence peddlers pushing propaganda, right? She was the least popular vice president in American history. Now, it's such a weird look. And listen, when a candidate is elected by the primary voters, they get to choose a nominee, right? And then the delegates will either vote on it or just by affirmation say yes. It is very weird to have an unelected Democrat primary, Democratic candidate choose a running mate, because the reason that they go through this whole thing of choosing the running mates is that they are trusted by the people to pick who they want on their ticket. In an open primary system where they just allegedly they claim they just had an open delegation, open convention, but no one else qualified. That's what they said. No one else was able to qualify.
Right. Just
why wouldn't they do the same for the vice presidential pick? Right. That's the question. Why do you get to choose the vice presidential running mate when no one chose you? It's very weird.
It's like nothing but window dressing, right? Everything looks pretty on the outside, but once you get behind the glass, there's nothing there, right? It's just a whole bunch of garbage they kind of piled up to the front. And it does feel weird to pick somebody that, I mean, she isn't even the elected person themselves. So why get this AstroTurf empty sort of pick to go with it? I mean, and what's happening is they're just legitimizing it, right? If she picks a VP candidate, it looks like they're going in what would normally happen. People are going to ignore this. They're not even going to realize that this is something they couldn't be doing, right? They're just
they'll realize
they're on board.
They'll absolutely realize it. I mean, remember what we said last week when we talked about this? We said she's going to pick a VP to try and take one state off the board. She chose to take Minnesota off the board. To borrow the words of the Democrats, that's weird. We've been told by every poll that Minnesota is safely Democrat. While Republicans have said our internals say that Minnesota could be close. No inside knowledge to this, but to pick a governor of a state that you've publicly said is not even close, it feels a little weird. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Democrat internals suggested that Minnesota was much, much, much closer than some of the public polling that
Sure.
we've seen.
And on the public side, I was at the Mall of America,
Mhm.
and it just beats Minnesota recently, and there was a lot of those kiosks with a ton of Trump stuff. Now, if you've
Yeah.
ever been to Minnesota, that almost never happens, right? You wouldn't see that inside the Mall of America. So there's signs there that they should be worried. And it's strategic, Max. You know it. It was the strategery, right? They picked the guy from that state, and he just happens to also be like super liberal. I
Yeah.
mean, I can't think of another person who has filled the role or checked the box for
Oh,
liberal cause.
no.
You on top of it, right?
There are a couple of Democrat governors like this who, anytime the left comes to them and says, "Hey, we should put this into law," there's a couple of Democrat governors who just do it, no questions
Yeah.
asked, do it. Right? You think of Gavin Newsom in California, New Jersey's governor does it a lot, and obviously Tim Walz does it as well. You have to be a real weirdo to say, I have a limited amount of time in office. I'm going to prioritize spearheading and passing and signing legislation to make sure that there's tampons in every boy's bathroom in every public school. Like, that's a weird priority at a time when people are struggling, to make ends meet, groceries are unaffordable. It's just a weird thing to prioritize. But that is, again, the side of the political spectrum that believes that men might need menstrual products too. Because unlike the rest of us who understand basic biology, that's the last place you should really be putting them. But no, these are the people who say that men can have periods too.
I think back to, gosh, feels like forever ago now, 2020. Remember how beautiful the Summer of Love was?
Yeah,
We're sitting there doing Conservative Daily, and the city is on
burning
fire. Not just burning. They are tossing Molotov cocktails in buildings, Max. I've never seen as much danger as one could have on a public street than I did in Minnesota during the Summer of Love.
Yeah.
And Walz just let this happen. There was no calling of the National Guard.
Trump was begging him. Trump was pressuring calling the National Guard.
Right.
Trump tried to call in the National Guard, and he was said, "No, you're not allowed to. Only the governor can." And Tim Walz let the city burn for 3 nights before the National Guard was called in. But Josh, it wasn't just that, right? Let me share my screen. It wasn't just that he waited 3 nights to call in the National Guard. His daughter was also running interference. This is his daughter, Hope Walz, on Facebook or just Twitter at the time, I guess, letting everyone know that don't worry, despite what the media is saying, the National Guard will not be out tonight. And even if they do come out, it takes a while. She's responding to this post. If you're at the protest, get out now. National Guard and SWAT are en route. They're almost there. The governor's daughter says the guard cannot be set within minutes. It takes time for them to deploy because they come from all over the state. To be clear, the National Guard will not be present tonight. Wow. Even in a world where you can't get the National Guard on scene, at the very least, pretend that it's happening so that maybe the rioters and the looters stop. But no, the governor's own daughter is running interference, telling the rioters on social media when and where to expect the National Guard.
Unbelievable. Because the city burned, Max. I mean, it was bad. Businesses lost. People lost millions of dollars. Insurance claims weren't made, right? Or couldn't be paid. Insurance for those areas went out of control. What is this? Oh my God.
Yeah. You talking about the Democrats said, "Oh wow, JD Vance is so weird." No, these tampon Tim was trending all yesterday. It's weird. It's weird, but you're absolutely right with the National Guard. Listen, this isn't the first. I saw Deadpool and Wolverine the other day.
Me too. I saw it.
This isn't the first team up that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have had. In 2020, Tim Walz did everything in his power to make sure that the rioters and the looters had their way with the city of Minneapolis for 3 straight nights. And when he finally did call in the National Guard, the very few that actually did get arrested, Kamala Harris helped raise money so they'd be bailed out and back on the streets the next night.
Absolutely.
This is not the first team up. We've already seen what happens when they work together. And that's an entire city burning and the perpetrators either not being held accountable or bailed out of jail immediately thereafter.
Fact check it, gang. I mean, that's the good old story. Remember when the city burned? I mean, we showed you what it looked like. I mean, here's a reminder. Do we all remember this?
Yeah.
Do we not all see those people out there causing mayhem, burning buildings, enjoying themselves? I mean, it was so. Oh, here we go. Finding random buildings just to burn.
Just to burn down. Just to burn
And
down.
for those of you listening on the podcast, they're throwing Molotov cocktails in buildings. People standing around holding signs of "I can't breathe." This doesn't even touch on the stuff from the Floyd incidents, right? This is just part 2, part 3. I mean, there was almost times where you're thinking this is part 13 of the 3 days, right? Because there was so much going on. There, any other governor would have begged for the National Guard to come in and help stop this.
Well, he doesn't have to beg. He just has to order it, right? Trump was the one begging, saying, deploy it, trying to deploy it himself. The reason that Tim Walz did, I don't think Tim Walz wanted the city to burn, but he didn't want to be seen as the white governor cracking down on Black George Floyd protesters. Right? If he had deployed the National Guard on day 1, I guarantee you Kamala Harris doesn't pick him to be on the ticket with her.
Wow, maybe. Yeah.
Right?
I mean, yeah. It would have been bad optics.
Yeah. Oh, you were the only Democrat governor who shut it down. You wouldn't be in there. Because remember, this pick we talked about it. As I said before, we assumed she'd take a pick to try and take a state off of the map. Donald Trump's pathway to victory is the same as it's always been. You have to win Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina. Those are the 4 kind of bubble states that are very much leaning Trump. He's just got to secure and lock them down. Then he has to win 1 of 4 states to get over the hump. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, or pipe dream Minnesota. The word was that she was going to pick Shapiro.
No.
For Pennsylvania. That Kamala Harris was going to pick Shapiro.
Maybe. I mean, if she's got pieces on the chessboard, I mean, that would have been a big chunk.
Now, the rumor is that the reason she didn't is because Josh Shapiro is not only Jewish, but he is someone who has previously volunteered with both the Israeli embassy and the IDF.
Oh, the optic. Could you imagine that ticket? It's clear they wouldn't go that route. I mean, we see that. Hilarious, but scary all at the same time. It wouldn't make any sense. But yeah, it just wouldn't be the right kind of optics. And imagine having a VP candidate who has to say things that are anti-Israel as it moves forward on the Democrat side. I mean, you're talking about all of those Muslim followers that on the Dem ticket side, right? That would have been political suicide.
Josh, let me see if I can add to the screen. Did you see the video that leaked out last week? It was leaked. It was leaked. Here, let me play it. This was is this the right one? Here we go. This was a leaked video that was to be prepared for a launch of Shapiro with Harris.
Philadelphia, we got work to do.
We're ready to rumble, y'all.
I'm Mayor Sherelle Parker, here with leaders from across our region. Kamala Harris is on the road to victory.
And the road goes through Pennsylvania.
And in Pennsylvania, we're united behind her.
The woman that's tough and can lead.
Are we ready to fight for it?
She is the right person at the right time for this job.
It's going to do right by labor. It's going to do right by working people.
And I can't think of a better partner than our Governor Josh Shapiro.
His policies have not only supported the working class, but have set standards for progressive leadership that benefits all citizens.
Philadelphia building trades.
So this leaked out. Now that's from a previous rally where the mayor's talking like, "Oh, you can't think of a better partner." But this was put out there to kind of, there were a couple narratives. The first one was that this accidentally leaked. And this was supposed to go out today or yesterday, but went days early. That's one possibility. The other possibility is that she was leaning towards Shapiro, wanted to leak this out to see what the reaction would be.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Or that people leak this video out to pressure her to take Shapiro, hoping that this would cause a big groundswell of support behind him. Never seen anything like this. I don't know if we'll ever know the answer for what happened behind this Josh Shapiro for VP leaked video with the mayor of Philadelphia. I don't think we'll ever know. But what's very clear is that Josh Shapiro was not picked because if she had put a pro-Israel, pro-IDF Jewish man on the ticket, she would lose Minnesota, she would lose Michigan, and she would lose countless other places. So the idea that the anti-Semitism of her own party in any way, shape, or form weighed in on her selection is just crazy. I mean, it's crazy. And this isn't me. This is the public reporting that's out there from people leaking from within her orbit, from within her campaign, that despite the fact that, yes, she is married to a Jewish man, as we very well know, the first lady, first gentleman, wouldn't actually have any responsibilities. But putting a pro-Israel, pro-IDF vice president a heartbeat away from the presidency is a very different matter. Also couldn't pick Josh Shapiro because he very literally covered up a murder by claiming it was suicide. Have you seen that one?
I've heard of it. The reason she didn't go that route, like you said, it was probably to test the waters. Rarely does this stuff leak out without purpose. And folks got to understand that the Dems have a real hold on things. So I think it was probably testing the waters. And if she had picked him, man, you would have talked about the entire Midwest falling Republican. That would have been an embarrassment. Like they can't lose face in this election, right? They've got to try to at least. I mean, they stopped the hemorrhaging, right? They got rid of Biden. They throw in Harris. But if they were to lose the Midwest, it would just be horrible. Is that the one with the 20 stab wounds?
This is a woman who
Yeah.
was stabbed 10 times in the chest and 10 times in the back of the neck. And Josh Shapiro's office ruled this a suicide.
How do you stab? Oh.
So that's the other side of this. Like how do you stab yourself in the back of the neck 10 times?
Yeah.
And then also stab yourself in the chest 10 times. That's also something that weighed in on this. The other rumor was that Kamala Harris was thinking about picking Kelly of Arizona. That was another one that made me nervous because you take Arizona off the board and the pathway for Donald Trump to win becomes much, much, much more narrow.
Yeah.
It just does. And he had his own problems. I mean, we talked about this on the show. He is quite literally a founder of a Chinese-funded spy balloon company.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that too.
So
yeah, that too.
And he's an astronaut, so he has some interest in like high altitude surveillance, I guess. But it's a weird look. It's a weird look to pick as vice president someone who literally has a financial interest in a Chinese spy balloon company. It's a bad look.
Yeah, yeah. Even though go ahead.
You go.
No, I was going to say Andy also he's like one of the most anti-gun people that could hit, right? Like yeah, right. So that would have been dangerous. Continue your thought. I want to hear what you had to say on that.
Well, like we were thinking of like, what does she go with Gretchen Whitmer, who is the governor of Michigan, to try and take Michigan off the board? She could have taken the swing states off the board. Instead, she took a state, Minnesota, that the Trump campaign considers to be a swing state, but her campaign for the longest time has adamantly said, we have no reason to even defend here.
Yeah.
It's a little bit weird. And she did pick someone who has a lot of baggage, has a lot of baggage. I want to share something before we get into some of the other bits, but this is the Green Beret community is furious because, well, we'll talk about Tim Walz and his military record and the lies he's told about his record in his public official bio. But he also has been very publicly wearing this Special Forces hat. And he was not Special Forces. This is not just something that he seems to wear because he supports it. It seems to be something he wears to try and claim it as an identity. Special Forces community is up in arms about this because if it was just this, he could say, oh, well, I just support them. But it's not just that. He has problems because his military record is is completely been embellished and covering up what probably amounts to one of the great acts of cowardice ever told as it relates to someone on a presidential ticket about their military record. Usually, like you're like, oh, Tippecanoe, Tyler too, right? All the history of American political tickets, when the military is involved, you think of, oh, they picked heroes. They've picked people with great service records. Tim Walz quit after being notified that he was set to deploy. So he was set to be the highest rank of a non-commissioned officer, a command sergeant major, in charge, I believe, a brigade of artillery brigade. He was notified that his National Guard unit was going to most likely be deployed, and this was in the lead up to the Iraq War. And this wasn't like we'll see which way the wind blows. These people knew what these notifications meant. He was 2 or 4 years into a 6-year commitment. And he then, after receiving that notice, up and retires. He retires because he doesn't want to deploy. Runs for Congress, claiming that he was a command sergeant major. But the problem is he was given a conditional promotion to CSM. And those conditions are that he has to go through certain classes, he has to have certain trainings. He retired before completing those conditions. So he was actually demoted. So the way that conditional promotion works is if you don't meet the requirements, you're demoted. It's like it never happened. But he's for years has claimed that he retired at that rank, which is a problem for a lot of people. Now, I'm not in the military. I don't know all the specifics on this. I've read a bunch of it in the last 24 hours. I'm responding based on the outrage that the veteran community has to learning that he is claiming a rank that he never actually attained because he never actually met the conditions. But to retire halfway through your enlistment, your 6-year tour, after being notified that you're going overseas, to leave your troops just like no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
To abandon them, not because he didn't want to work anymore. He wanted to retire. He ran for Congress. This wasn't, I can't do the job. I can't do any job. Oh no, I don't want to go to war. I just want to go to Capitol Hill.
Dude, then why pick him? He's got a lot of baggage. It's not quite stolen valor, but it's false valor baggage. You know what I mean? Of all those picks,
claiming a rank that you didn't have is stolen valor. You're stealing a higher rank that you shouldn't
never had.
And even Newsweek is now reporting. Let me see if I can share this. Even Newsweek is now reporting that the National Guard disputes Tim Walz's military biography.
Unbelievable, because that's Newsweek.
That he did not hold the rank of command sergeant major at the time of his retirement. He did not retire as that. He retired as a master sergeant because he did not complete additional coursework at the U.S. Army Sergeant's Major Academy. A soldier who does not complete the requisite coursework is automatically demoted. So this isn't like a conspiracy theory.
No, but it's being put that way. I mean, go to not X, but go to some of the Facebook, go to some Instagram, listen to all the people that are helping with the campaign now, talking about what he does. He still says that he obtained those ranks. He doesn't try to hide the fact that he's stolen that valor, right? He continues to perpetuate lies. If he's willing to lie about this, what else is he willing to lie about? And you get a guy that's about to go into office that say anything to anybody to get that vote. So, and he's the white guy on the ticket. Like, did they make the pick because they wanted to round out the DEI portion of it, or did they pick it because they were trying to go after that white male voter? Right?
I think they think he can, in addition to locking down Minnesota, which they had to fear, right? If they didn't fear Trump winning in Minnesota, I can't imagine why they would pick the governor of Minnesota. If you believe that Minnesota was a solidly blue state, it would be as idiotic as Trump picking, what was it, Borgum, the governor of North Dakota. It's not someone you need help with.
No. I mean, you've already got North Dakota in the bag. Why would you pick that person? I mean, the reason you pick him is because you're hoping that vote for governor goes towards the person you pick.
Here's
why you call it taking it off the board.
I want to play a little bit of this. This was a video about Tim Walz quitting after being notified he was going to deploy, and a reporter interviewing some of the soldiers who were forced to deploy without him.
And to wage a public war of words against Tim Walz.
He abandoned us. I mean, what the hell kind of leader does that? I mean, he just, as soon as the shots were fired in Iraq, he turned and ran the other way and hung his hat up and quit.
We'll get to Barron's new message for voters in a moment. But this all starts years earlier when Barron says Walz's misleading statements about his military service first led him to come forward in the fall of 2018.
So you try to get this message out, but Minnesota's largest newspaper checks it out, says it's 100% true, but yet refuses to print.
When I hung the phone up, I said, what the hell is this, North Korea?
Back in 2005, a warning order went out to the 1st Battalion, 125th Field Artillery to mobilize for a mission to Iraq. At the time, Walz served as the unit's highest non-commissioned officer, but months later, Walz would retire from the Guard, avoid the deployment, and run for Congress. Tom Behrens was next in line for the position and was asked to take his place.
I was like, well, for Pete's sake, if this guy quit, and if I say I'm not going to do it, I mean, what the hell kind of leadership is that? If a company would say that we're going to deploy to Iraq or somewhere and you're going to be gone for whatever amount of time, and then the foreman just says, no, I'm not going. I mean, what does that say to the 500 people that work in that factory?
Behrens would go on to serve in Iraq on a nearly 2-year deployment as a command sergeant major. All while Walz began using that title as a congressman. Behrens says he first contacted Walz with his concerns, sending these letters to Washington. They all went unanswered.
So this isn't just someone in the unit complaining. This is the guy who replaced Walz after he quit. This isn't someone at the bottom. If you're going to say that Walz is to be trusted because he reached command sergeant major, right? When we know that he didn't, because he didn't actually do it. If that means he's trustworthy, then you have to believe the guy who actually did hold the title and only held it because Walz quit months after learning he was deploying so that he wouldn't have to go overseas. And listen, I get it. I didn't volunteer after college. I thought about maybe doing it. So no, it's not for me. It is for some people. It's not for other people. And I have utmost respect for anyone who joins any of the branches of the military or the Coast Guard. Nothing but respect for them. But it is ridiculous for someone to have made this name for himself, one, on the back of a promotion that he didn't actually get, and two, on the back of military service. He didn't actually serve overseas. And there's lots of veterans who didn't serve overseas or didn't serve in combat. That's fine. But as Walz is going around promoting himself, he is spreading the lie that he served overseas. Here he is. Josh pulled this clip. Here he is at a town hall event of some kind, talking about how he wants to ban AR-15s because they are the same as the rifles that he carried into combat. Remember, he never went to combat. He quit months after learning he was deploying because he didn't want to go. But now that he's over here, he wants to take our guns away because he says they're too similar to the guns he would have carried if he had actually gone.
Hope woke up like many of you did 5 weeks ago and Dad said, Dad, you're the only person I know who's in elected office. You need to stop what's happening with this. I'll take my kick in the butt for the NRA. I spent 25 years in the Army and I hunt. And I gave the money back, and I'll tell you what I have been doing. I've been voting for common sense legislation that protects the Second Amendment, but we can do background checks. We can do CDC research. We can make sure we don't have reciprocal carry among states, and we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
These weapons of war, like the ones I carried in combat, he didn't. He didn't. So the other
coward liar. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't want to like nitpick, but if he had served 25 years, he would have deployed.
Yeah.
He only served 24 years, because he didn't deploy. So he's kind of spreading, but I get it. You round up, right? You round up to a nice 25, nice sounding number. That's fine. But to say we're going to take away Americans' guns, ban Americans' guns because they're too similar to the ones that I deployed with overseas to combat, when he literally ran from that deployment, is insanity. It's insanity. I'm not even going to go into the specifics of how an AR-15 is not the same as an M4 or an M16. Not even going to get into that. The basis of his claim that you should trust me, I know these are too dangerous because I carried these in combat, is bullshit.
He's a liar. He's a liar and he's a coward. And that guy would be one heartbeat away from being the president of the United States if they get elected. So our president, if he would be it, would be a coward and a liar. Is that what we want?
And
People
you heard
are willing
the
to
little dig?
lie.
You heard the little dig? He says, oh, we have to make sure there's no carry reciprocity.
So, yeah.
As if that's
Absolutely.
the problem. As if law-abiding Americans, who every study has shown that concealed carriers are more law-abiding than police officers. Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
Concealed carriers, when they travel across state lines on vacations with their family, might want to also carry their gun. They're licensed in their home state, but the state they're visiting doesn't offer them reciprocity, doesn't honor that out-of-state concealed carry permit. They'll honor their driver's license, right? Saying, hey, you know what? You're from a different state. They have different driving rules, different driving tests, but we understand you generally know how to drive. Make sure you know our laws and you can drive here as well. The argument for concealed carry reciprocity is the same. Hey, you might have different self-defense laws. You might have different classes to get that permit, but we generally understand that if you're permitted in one state, you're probably good enough to be permitted everywhere. So just learn the laws and make sure that you follow the law and you can carry here. That's the common sense argument, right? And for him to say, like, oh, I'm going to tackle this. I'm going to do background checks, red flag laws, ban assault weapons, make sure that people can't defend their families when they're on vacation or traveling for work. What the hell? And it just rolls off the tongue so comfortably.
Yeah, he's totalitarian. He feels like he's got fascist views. I mean, it's no wonder that Minnesota is as liberal and as dangerous as it is now. And he didn't win by much in that state, Max. I mean, he won only 13 out of 87 counties in Minnesota when he won.
Yeah.
And if you look at the map, I'll just share my screen here just so you can see what I'm looking at here.
Yeah.
That's what they're up against in that state. No wonder they picked him, because they're afraid. They're worried.
That even though he only won that few number of counties, that the urban counties made up 60%. Just two counties made up 60% of his entire vote total. So it's stacked. It's stacked, and it's like many states, right? The most votes are going to be in the cities. That's fine, but this is very similar to what we see in the Electoral College. That it's New York, it's California, and a couple other cities in between, and everything else is red. Everything else is red. And he said in there that he said in that speech where he was doing the stolen valor, claiming that he actually served in combat, that we can respect the Second Amendment. The interesting thing is that the state of Minnesota actually just lost a lawsuit where a federal judge agreed that the federal appeals court agreed that they had been violating the Second Amendment by saying that it's unconstitutional to limit carrying handguns in public to people of certain ages. So if you're old enough to own a gun, they have to let you also carry it. So this notion that like, oh, well, I like to hunt. I'm a hunting man. I'm a NRA through and through. And I served in combat, even though I didn't. I'll lie and say I did. So we'll ban all the guns I should have carried but didn't because I was a chicken and didn't go. And oh yeah, I respect the Second Amendment, except for this. All these cases where I've been overturned by the courts because I violated the Second Amendment. It's crazy.
He's a rabid anti-Second Amendment person, right? I mean, he wears that AstroTurf jacket saying I protect it, but how many of those common sense gun laws did they pass where you lost half of your rights?
Yeah.
Right. And then that's what he represents. And they picked him probably because they know that he's on the same page, right? They know that he's gonna go lockstep. And this is the guy that would be the tiebreaker in Congress, right? I mean, you want to talk about having that vote matter, woo, that would be the big one, right? Because this guy might be the edge that gets, a national reciprocity thrown out, or law against it, where abortion becomes legal in all states because he's the tiebreaker on it, right? And this is stuff you got to think about when you vote. He doesn't like our military. Obviously, he ran because he was a coward. He doesn't like the Second Amendment, though he lies through his teeth on it. He's ultra charming, which makes him really scary. Like the way he talks to people, there's a lot of manufactured happiness. I see a lot of just that fakery when he talks to people, but he's charming. I mean, he has qualities that Kamala doesn't. He's a people person. Kamala is not a people person. This guy is a talker. He's great with crowds. He's the first one to lead conversations. In some of those tarmac stuff, you see him going to the press first, or at least talking to the people that are meeting there before they go into Air Force 2. So, like, they got him because they know that she's just a wooden doll in a box. I mean,
yeah, and listen, they have. I'm just looking at some of the things. They have all the nice little pictures of him hunting pheasant, hunting ducks, or whatever. But they can't run away from the video. I'm gonna pull it up right now. The video just from a couple days ago. Tim Walz on a white men for Kamala, one of those stupid Zoom calls that they've been having, where he said, literally, one person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
No.
Get out there, reach out, make the case. And for one thing, don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
Socialism has killed more innocent people than any other ideology in world history. Period. Full stop.
Yeah.
Socialism is not Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. Won't you be my neighbor? No. Socialism is a killer. And this guy saying one man's socialism and another man's neighborliness. Again, if this was a vote of Democrat voters, he would not have been chosen. I would like to think because Democrats would not want to elect the guy who says socialism is just like neighborliness. But at the very least, they would know that this guy couldn't win a general. And this was after he had already started the vetting process.
Oh my gosh.
This was a couple days ago. So he knows he's being vetted and considered for the VP. He gets on the white dudes for Kamala or whatever fuck this call was. And he says, oh, don't ever shy away from progressive values. One man's socialism is another man's neighborliness. And there are times when conservatives, Republicans brand someone as a socialist, and it's a little bit of a stretch. Like, oh, well, they support Medicare and Social Security, so they're a socialist. There are times where it happens. This time will not be one of those times. Tim Walz is absolutely a socialist. You can't say that socialism is like neighborliness. No, socialism is killing. Again, more people than any other ideology. It's not like walking next door and saying, hey, can I borrow a cup of sugar?
Right, and they hide it behind progressive talk, right? But he flat out just says socialism. That's in his mind. And it just comes off, like you said, it comes off the tongue.
Let's play it again. Let's play it again.
Yeah, I mean, listen to this.
But we can get out there, reach out, make the case. And for one thing, don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
It's almost speechless territory.
Well, I mean, those beliefs of his give people abortion access. He wants free college tuition. He signed a bill doing that. Universal school meals, right? Gender affirming care, paid family and medical leave. I mean, they try to paint him as this guy who wants to do things to help the common man. But guys, this is all wrapped in socialist paper.
Yeah.
With the socialist ribbon. Just crazy. Affordable housing. I mean, he had clean energy policies in many, voting rights for ex-felons. I mean, that one.
Yeah. His rebrand is the way they're trying to explain the Democrat push to put erotica and pornography in elementary school libraries, and making sure that boys have menstrual products. And he signed a bill into law saying that if your child believes that they are transgendered, and you as a parent don't want to let them go through medical or even surgical castration, the state can step in and take your kids away if you don't affirm your underage child's desire to castrate themselves. He signed that bill into law. This is the guy who started the whole, like, JD Vance is weird. It's weird to say, to be the state and say you're going to take someone's kids away if the parents don't affirm the underage minor's desire to castrate themselves. That's weird. That's a little weird. Isn't it? Just a little weird?
I think that you're saying that we're just too nice. Weird is something that can be kind of ha-ha funny sometimes. You're weird, but you're not a societal pariah. These kinds of things have, I mean, they're horrible. They're gross. They're repugnant. That's not weird, Max. That's scary. I mean, what word do you attach to that? We're just too nice for this dude. Right?
He's trying to rebrand himself as, I might not agree with it, but I let my neighbors do what they want. Leave them alone. Don't interfere with what other people do. But that doesn't even hold any weight.
No.
Because during COVID, this guy set up a hotline where people could narc on their neighbors if they saw their neighbors going outside violating the shelter order. Here's one of the emails.
Bullshit. What a
hello.
asshole.
My name is blank, and I live in blah 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 City Park between and so was at City Park between 33rd and 34th. Yesterday, blah, 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 I noticed a very large gathering of a pickup basketball game with a lot of observers that easily totaled 30 plus. Then with the additional people in the park, either playing Frisbee, exercising, or playing with their dogs, there were easily 50 plus people in a park that's not very large. While I would love if the parks could stay open for those who are practicing social distancing properly, I don't believe that's the case here. Narking on their neighbors for going outside and using a city park because, there were 30 to 50 people in a park. There's more.
Oh, my God.
Good morning. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate email address to send my concerns. Personally, I don't feel people are being compliant with the stay-at-home order. Such and such convenience store in White Bear Lake, and in-store traffic is the same. Customers are coming and saying, I'm bored and need to get out of the house. They buy lottery tickets, a candy bar, soda, etc. Those items are not essential, blah, 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 blah. And the traffic flow is the same as it was a month ago. This is just a few examples I've experienced. People narking on businesses to try and get them shut down for doing non-essential transactions. This is not a man who believes, just let neighbors do what they want. He set up a narc hotline.
That's so anti-business. How many people lost their livelihoods because of that stupid order? Right? And he was behind it. And if he's willing to do it then, if another pandemic shows up, do you think that he, if he was in charge with Kamala Harris, would have a problem doing the same thing over again? No. These people, they'll lock you up even when you haven't committed a crime. And he's done it.
Yeah.
I mean, Kamala Harris basically puts people in slavery. This guy forces people into losing their businesses through what was clearly a dumbass order from the start.
Yeah.
And he wears the liberal policies like charms on a necklace, right? I mean, and he's unabashed about this. I mean, he's not even denying most of this stuff, and he accepts it. So is that play here?
It isn't just the narking. I'm just reading this.
Yeah.
This narking had serious consequences. Walz had signed an executive order giving him and the executive branch the authority to fine people up to $1,000 or 90 days in jail or both if they violated the stay-home order. So when your neighbor saw you leave the house, if they thought you weren't doing an essential job, they could turn you in, and the governor the executive branch could fine you or imprison you up to 90 days.
And he's on board with this. Like he runs this. This is
his shutdown order was so radical, it didn't even allow outdoor dining.
Oh my God. I mean, how many restaurants died because of COVID?
Yeah.
He destroyed Minnesota. Coming to a theater near you, right? If this continues. And I haven't even looked at his pooling yet. I mean, is he doing well? I got to imagine that he's giving him a bump.
How about this? Tim Walz, this was not a mistake to discharge COVID-19 patients into nursing homes.
No, that killed so many people.
He did just like New York, right? Just like Pennsylvania. Tim Walz followed the same playbook of taking COVID-19 positive patients and putting them in the one place that anyone with common sense would know not to put them, which would be in nursing homes with the most vulnerable people living in them.
I mean, it felt like kind of like they were euthanizing people by sending them to horrible places, lightening up the old folks' homes, as it were. And he was on board with that.
After he made this call, 80% of the deaths in his state were coming from long-term care settings where he ordered COVID-19 patients. Yeah.
But I'm sure we'll be fact checked for it.
No, he killed a bunch of people.
Wow.
He was a COVID-19 tyrant. And I think the only reason we didn't hear about him is that we didn't live in Minnesota, and Gavin Newsom and New York, Andrew Cuomo, that kind of took all the headlines. And unless you were in the Midwest, this didn't reach you. But he was just as bad, if not worse, than all of those other places.
And this guy's being brought on to help shore up the ticket, right? I mean, this is scary.
Yeah,
I've never seen well, nobody's there, another new first under the Biden administration, or at least the Democrats at this point.
Yeah.
Unelected people getting the ticket.
Walz mandated masks in outdoor spaces.
And how much of this has been disproved, right?
Indoor gatherings were arbitrarily limited at 10 people, and outdoor gatherings were capped at 25. This is absolute tyranny.
I couldn't go to a cousin's funeral because of COVID. I'm still pissed.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to carry that one for a long time, and I'm never going to forget that.
My wife's grandfather died in a New York nursing home. Had COVID, recovered, and then passed away. In one of the nursing homes that got COVID positive patients. This is something that affected a lot of people, and it doesn't even look like he's sorry. Having gone through all of it, it doesn't even look like he's a little bit sorry.
It's more to come.
So if he and Kamala Harris ever hold a press conference, this would be the kind of questioning that a Republican governor would certainly get if they presided over this record. This would definitely be the kind of questions a Republican candidate would get. Are you sorry that X number of people died after you signed an executive order having COVID patients discharged into nursing homes? Are you a little bit sorry about that? Are you sorry that you fined and imprisoned people for exercising their rights? Are you sorry about that? Those would be the kind of questions you'd want to ask. Mm-hmm. And JD Vance is trying to get those answers. Here's him on the campaign trail today talking about the military record thing that we started talking about earlier in the show.
By a lot of the people that he served with. I think it's shameful.
Yeah, let me start.
When the United States of America asked me to go to Iraq to serve my country, I did it. I did what they asked me to do it, and I did it honorably, and I'm very proud of that service. When Tim Walz was asked by his country to go to Iraq, you know what he did? He dropped out of the Army and allowed his unit to go without him, a fact that he's been criticized for aggressively by a lot of the people that he served with. I think it's shameful.
Yeah. But instead of the media covering this is what one of Kamala's surrogates was saying on CNN.
Well, here is Tim Walz, who enlisted when he was 17 years old. He served.
This is a senator.
Served in the National Guard for 24 years. And I'm not aware of any military service that J.D. Vance has ever served.
my
So let's just
God!
make the comparison there. And what happened in the tragedy
Well,
of the
he
killing
was
of
in the
George
Marines, but-
Floyd and then the unrest. Yeah, okay, pardon me for that.
Now, if this was Donald Trump on CNN saying, I'm not aware that Tim Walz ever served in the military, it would not be 5 seconds and then a half-hearted fact check. It would be, sir, gonna stop you there. That's not true. They would have then brought in the CNN fact checker, that little weasel who pops in every now and then with his own twisted takes, right? That's what would have happened. But no, this is a sitting senator saying she's not aware of J.D. Vance ever serving in the military. Are you kidding me? And then she's like, oh, I'm sorry. I guess I'm mistaken. Maybe you shouldn't be a talking head. Maybe you should.
Maybe the point is that she's supposed to go out and say that because there's people that will believe it. They'll believe that Walz was a hero, right? If they paint him that way, they'll believe that Vance didn't serve because they say it. I mean, we know what they're doing here. They're just trying to put out confusing narratives.
Yeah.
And it works beautifully for the Democrats. They've been doing it since the 70s, right? You just confuse, and then get your person elected. I mean,
and that's why they're hiding. That's why they're hiding from taking any questions from the press, no press conferences, no interviews.
Yeah.
J.D. Vance, his plane was actually on the same tarmac as Kamala Harris's plane, Air Force Two. And J.D. Vance decided to take a little stroll and see and check out the plane that he hopes to be his own and to see if Kamala Harris might be ready to talk to reporters yet. And the press was more than happy to get that on video. Here it is.
I figured I'd come by and one, just get a good look at the plane, because hopefully it's going to be my plane in a few months, but I also thought you guys might get lonely because the vice president doesn't answer questions from reporters and hasn't for 17 days. Have they given you guys an explanation for why she won't take questions from reporters? No?
Silence.
Okay, great. Well, I hope that she changes her mind because it'd be good for the American people, and I think it'd be good for you all if she actually ran a real campaign instead of one from a basement with a teleprompter. So have a good one, guys. See ya.
What?
He just strolled over.
Uh-huh.
He just strolled over, and it was not like a close walk. He walked a bit. He walked a little bit, and this thing he has Secret Service protection, so he can walk into a Secret Service protected area. And then I know, sir, you can't come here. He's protected by the same people.
So see people, yeah.
But yeah, he's like, has she answered any questions? Are you concerned about that? That you're sitting on a tarmac to videotape someone who will not talk to you? Who's just running a campaign from a basement with a teleprompter?
Unreal. And you notice they didn't really start barking questions out at him. Like they were limiting the time that he could make a response, because maybe they asked a question he would answer, but they know to keep their mouths shut, right? Yeah. I mean, they're all part of that apparatus. So they're probably actually shocked that he did that, because they understand the optics of that. She's been missing for 17 days, right? I'm pretty sure they don't want her opening her mouth anywhere. I'm going to guess that Walz is going to start making more public appearances than her.
Yeah, probably. And if he's going to do those public appearances, he should be asked to answer for a lot of what we've already talked about. But then he also should probably answer to what I'm going to show you now. And we'll close with this. In 2022, Walz signed into law a bill to amend the state's definition of sexual orientation. Now, previously, state law had said that for like non-discrimination, things like that.
Yeah.
That you cannot use a sexual orientation defense if you are discriminated against on the basis of having a physical or sexual attachment or attraction to a child. That pedophiles who are discriminated against cannot claim that they were discriminated against on the basis of their sexual orientation, because state law explicitly said that sexual orientation cannot be applied to pedophilia. Pedophilia is not a sexual orientation. Tim Walz signed a bill into law removing that language.
No.
what I just read to you right here, sexual orientation does not include a physical or sexual attachment to a child by an adult. Tim Walz signed into law the amendment that struck that provision from the law. It said now it just says sexual orientation means having or being perceived as having an emotional, physical, or sexual attachment to another person without regard to the sex of that person, or having or being perceived as having an orientation for such attachment. So it's a little bit weird. Why would you allow pedophiles to use a sexual orientation discrimination defense? Why would you strike that? I mean, this is weird. This is weird.
Yeah.
If a pedophile walks into a store and the store owner says, "I'm not serving pedophiles, get the hell out." Before Walz, the pedophile couldn't sue. After Walz, the pedophile can sue and say that I was discriminated against on the basis of my sexual orientation.
What happens if that predator is looking for a job somewhere, or a neighborhood doesn't want them there, or a sensitive government job that may have people close to children? You wouldn't be able to introduce that. You want to talk about greenlighting every pervert predator that's ever existed? They would be kicking them in a second.
Look at the
for everything.
Was it the Masterpiece Cake Shop? Was it the cake shop in Colorado?
Yep.
Imagine being asked to make a pedophile cake, saying no, and being sued because of it.
Imagine being.
That's what they're trying to normalize. That's what they're trying to normalize. This is a man who went out of his way to pass this into law, to sign this into law. That's weird. He should probably have to answer for that.
You could have a rape victim being told that they would have to make a cake for a person about raping children.
Yeah.
And potentially from the very person that did that to that person, right?
Yeah.
And they would have to do it or be sued by them.
NAMBLA, North American Man Boy Love Association, comes in and says, "We want a cake for our big annual gala." And you say, "No, I don't want to make a cake for pedophiles. Oh, I'm going to sue you for discriminating on the basis of my sexual orientation." They're trying to normalize it. They're trying to normalize it. That's weird. To use his language against J.D. Vance and Trump, that's weird. Saying that you want to make it easier for pedophiles to file discrimination lawsuits is weird. That's a weird thing you should probably have to answer for. We'll see. We'll see if they ask him.
It just seems to me like everybody inside the party might have a background with something like that, which makes me even weirder.
Or he's just, as I said earlier, the leftist puppet, where they said you have a majority in the House, you have a majority in the Senate, you're a Democrat. These are our wish lists, and he just signs them all into law. Either he is a card-carrying member of this craziness, or he's a puppet. Which one? Choose.
I'm going puppet.
Well, not you. He has to choose.
Yeah. I'm going with puppet. I'm thinking he's
card-carrying member.
He's a puppet.
Because it isn't just that he signed this; he also held little events, signing ceremonies for it. This wasn't a quiet signing.
Remember that when you vote, folks. It's gonna happen. We are just months away. It's already August 7th. I mean, we're just two and a half months away. You got to start getting out there. It's time to share this show. Make sure other people know what's being said. And the easiest way to do that is tell them about the Right Guys podcast. We can be found just about anywhere. Podbean, Google, you name it, Apple. Make sure you get that in people's hands so they know that the fight is being fought.
Yep.
And the best people to do that are sitting right in front of you.
Yeah. That's it for this edition of the podcast. Like, follow, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff. We'll be with you again on Friday. As always, my name is Max McGuire.
I'm Josh Hammerling.
Remember, the fight to take back the country is not over yet. Not over by a long shot.
Close.
But the only way we win against this insanity is if we all stand and fight together. See you next time.
See you.